Well, hello everyone. I was planning on doing this Facebook Live, but technology was not cooperating with me, and unfortunately, I was not able to access my camera. But I'm going to practice the tips in the book, which is to be open, trusting, and allowing. That what is occurring is just perfect, and I was supposed to do this video instead, so here it is. So what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit today about my new book coming out. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. 7 Principles of Wise Leaders. And this is why gut intelligence GQ is just as important as IQ and EQ. Because as a consultant for 30 years, I can tell you that most of the conversations that I have with people are about decision making. And it's about them not trusting themselves and making decisions because their gut is saying one thing, their heart is saying something else, their head is saying something else, and there's all this chattering that's going on inside. And I have to say that I completely empathize with this because I struggled with this decision making and trusting myself as a young child, as early as 5 years old. And I know that this occurred in my life because this is supposed to be my mission to help people to trust that still small voice inside. And, personally, I think it's the Holy Spirit. Jesus in the Bible said, I'm leaving to be with the Father, and I leave with you the Holy Spirit, the guidance, the counselor within you. Now, in psychology, they call it intuition. Some people call it the inner voice, and to me it's semantics, whatever you decide that is. But there is an inner voice, and we often get confused on which of these voices that we should listen to. And the inner voice that I am promoting is that still small voice within. It's the voice that makes us feel clear, calm, and confident. And that's what this book is all about, is helping to notice the difference between that chattering voice in our mind that I call in the book the ego, which edges our greatest self out, and being able to listen to that inner voice. And that inner voice comes from what I call is gut intelligence. Now, let me tell you my story first so you understand why I'm so extremely passionate about this. See, when I was a young child at 5 years old, I had a gut feeling that the man who was raising me was not my father. And I was actually very close to my dad that was raising me, but it was just an intuitive knowing that I had. And when I asked my parents, they basically denied it. And so I grew up not trusting myself. And I'm sure this is happening to you too, where you had a hunch about something and people told you it was your silly imagination, so you weren't sure if you could trust yourself. And that's awful. Even in the most innocent situations where kids just know this is what they want to eat, or they just know this is what they want to wear, or they just know this is what they want to do. And parents are always on the outside telling them no, 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 instead of being more curious and honoring that inner voice inside. And then pretty soon people grow up and they have eating addictions because someone shoved food down their mouth and told them what it was they were supposed to eat versus being able to listen to their bodies. Or they didn't know who they were because people were telling them how to dress and how to act and all of that. So see, it's all really the same. So anyway, in my story, what ended up happening is I did have a hard time making decisions for many, many years. Not that I made some awful, awful bad decisions, but they were just decisions that didn't really align with who I am and my vision, values, and goals and that inner voice inside. And so it wasn't until I was about 32, 33 years old, and I was working this big corporate job and making muko 6-figure bucks. And my second daughter was born. In fact, her birthday's tomorrow. I'll be sure to wish her happy birthday. She'll be 32 years old tomorrow. And she was born and she was very sick for 6 months. And the job I was working, God bless them, that wasn't the day and age where they would let people in a position like I had work part-time, but they did everything they could to keep me, and it just wasn't working out for me. So I ended up quitting my job, and deep down inside, I always knew since I was 16 years old, because I did listen to that inner voice, that I wanted to be a motivational speaker. So I started to build my own business. And as I was doing that, I would actually spend a lot of time during the day because she slept during the day and she was awake all night long. So I spent a lot of time during the day in my big whirlpool tub, hot tub, meditating. Now, that day and age, they didn't have Google, or there wasn't mindfulness, there wasn't like yoga studios like we have now. But intuitively, I knew that if I just quieted my mind, put candles on and did deep breathing and focused on a question, I would be able to quiet that chattering mind and listen to that still small voice. So I had a couple questions. One big one was, how am I going to start this business I always wanted to do? And this was 30 years ago, or not, yeah, about 28 years ago. And how will I ever find out this truth that I wanted to know about my birth father? Well, anyway, long story short, through the listening, I was able to find evidence of who my birth father was. And it wasn't because, nowadays on Ancestry.com you can find these things out, but it was because my still small voice told me that I had a rare blood type, AB negative, and my mom was positive. And this voice led me to a little box that my dad had left behind that had his blood type in it, and he was positive too. And this told me that he could not be my birth father. So I knew. And once that happened, and I also was listening to my still small voice about my business, and that took off, I started thinking I'm onto something here. So when I would begin coaching all my clients, and I've been an executive coach for 30 years, and they would have difficulty making decisions, I would use the techniques on them that I used on myself that really helped me to listen to my inner voice and discovered the ways that I needed to make decisions and align them to my vision, values, and goals. And I would get all these great raving reviews and how suddenly they were clear, calm, and confident by using my techniques. In fact, funny story is I was in a car accident about 7 years ago, and I had to go to the emergency room. And they did this little test where they were measuring the oxygen in my blood. And the emergency room person said to me, "Are you a yoga teacher?" And I thought to myself, that's kind of an odd question. I said, "Why are you asking me that?" And they said, "Well, because you have so much oxygen in your blood that it's usually only the teachers who are either meditation teachers or yoga teachers." And I thought, see, this is because I'm practicing this on a regular basis, not just with myself, but with my clients. So I said, well, yeah, I'm an executive yoga teacher, and they didn't know what that meant, but it didn't matter. So anyway, finally now I've written this book to help you to be able to listen to this inner voice and to quiet this chattering mind so you can trust yourself in decisions. And the chapters in the book I think are pretty darn cool. It's why leaders need gut intelligence, GQ as much as IQ and EQ, how to increase your gut intelligence and become a wise leader, how gut intelligence helps you make wise decisions, common defense mechanisms, like haven't we all done that ourselves or faced somebody where you know something and they deny it because they don't want you to know it, and like all the defense mechanisms are all in the book. And you'll probably see how you use some of them too when people call you out and you really don't want them to know something. Yeah. Okay, then the chapter 5, the wise woman and wise man. And in this chapter, I talk about how our brains are wired differently and how this inner voice is a little bit different in men and women, and how we need to honor this instead of, kind of bashing each other the way we do sometimes. So it's really quite revealing. And how the role of the leader is changing. When you think of the old leadership, it's like, oh, I have all the answers and let me tell you. Or, I'm the coach and let me coach you because you need help because I'm above you. I talk about how that's all changing. And the real thing that we need to do is honor the gut intelligence and wisdom in each other and be more curious about what we really know. So for example, I'm just going to say this as a mom. When my children come to me and they say, "Mom, what should I do about this, I always say, well, what do you think you should do? And when they say, well, I don't know, I say, well, if you knew, what would you know? And then, you know what? I take a deep breath and they take a deep breath, and I just am still and I let them think, and they always figure it out. And I do that same thing with my clients and they figure it out. So imagine if we were those kinds of leaders with our children, if we were those kinds of leaders in the workplace. So when somebody came to us and put the monkey on our back, instead of getting in our ego like, oh, let me tell you what to do, this is what you should do. Instead, if we said, well, what do you think you should do? And if they said, well, I don't know, and we said, well, if you knew, what would you know? And then just be quiet and listen and breathe and help them just kind of have the space to hear that inner voice. oh my goodness, what kind of world would we live in? It would be a whole lot better. A lot less anxiety and depression, because I really think anxiety and depression are tied to not listening to the inner voice. Think about that. Okay, so I'm just going to read you a little bit from my book. I hope you've all downloaded this because it's free through Monday. And by the way, send it to everybody you know, because after Monday it's $9.99. So, have it be a gift from you. So, I start out the book and I say, gut intelligence is needed as much as IQ and EQ. It is the ability to make decisions that consider the wisdom of your gut, heart, and head, so that your decisions are holistic. Without the ability to listen to this wisdom within, your fear can derail you from the vision, values, and goals that you want to achieve. The fear is our ego. So now I go into a story and I say, consider Scott, who was a leader who got up every morning and watched the news. Now, this is a true story. This is a client of mine. He was the third generation of a family-owned construction business that was booming so much he had just renovated his own office with new furnishings. Only a few years later, in July of 2006, he began to see changes in the marketplace that led him to believe there would be a downturn in the economy that could hurt the construction business. Well, anyway, I go on and I tell about how he listened to his gut, sold his business, and got ahead of the whole problem that industry had and saved himself financially. And then I tell another story, and the other story is about Janet, this IT person. And I'll just paraphrase this for you. Janet was somebody who was doing this big programming project with this outside contractor who, long story short, at the very end, put a widget in the back end of the programming so he could split the checking accounts to the company's and his. And she had a gut sense that this occurred when he was pushing her to go to market, when she got the testing that came in and it wasn't an even dollar amount, and she followed her gut instinct, called the e-commerce company, and they said, yes, he's put in a widget different than we told him to, and it's splitting into two accounts. So I use these two stories to start out the book to say, this is why we need to listen to our gut, heart, and head. And if we just listen to our gut, sometimes that can be rather impulsive because we can get all upset. We can do things that we regret later, but it's this ability to integrate the gut, heart, and head so that we're making wise decisions that are aligned with our vision, values, and goals. So I hope you buy the book. I'm still going to try to do a Facebook Live before the end of the day tomorrow, but unfortunately my technology would not allow me to do it because it wouldn't allow me to access my camera. So thank goodness for antivirus. It's protecting my computer, but I'm not able to do a Facebook Live. So hopefully you're able to watch this video. Hopefully you'll download the book, 7 Principles of Wise Leaders. And thanks for listening. I'm Susan K. Worley, and I really want you to help me spread the word of gut intelligence because we can help a lot of people from making decisions that are not aligned to their vision, values, and goals. Thanks.